Good morning.
Good morning. It's a great pleasure to join you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Yeah, please, what is the Global Education Summit all about? And why is it so important to the United Kingdom?
Well, girls' education in particular is a huge priority for our Prime Minister, and he committed to co-host this summit with President Kenyatta, and we've been preparing for it for some time. As you said, it's designed to raise an additional $5 billion to invest in education, particularly in those countries with most children out of school. So we will be looking to expand education to an additional 175 million children, and that delivers great returns. We know investment in education means economies can grow to an additional 164 billion. Actually, good, smart investment in education saves money, so we'll be looking to do education in a different way, saving 160 billion. 18 million people will be lifted out of poverty, and particularly important for this summit, an additional 2 million children saved from lives of early marriage. So there are really important outcomes at stake at this summit, and we're so delighted that Nigeria is headed by a delegation with the President himself, obviously joined by the Education Minister and the Foreign Minister.
Okay, what is the Global Partnership for Education doing in Nigeria? What has been its impact?
So the Global Partnership for Education, just to explain what that is first of all, it's the largest multilateral fund supporting education in developing countries. And because it's a multilateral fund to which contributions can come both from governments and from philanthropists, it has huge reach. And one of the priority countries for the Global Partnership for Education is Nigeria. It's been working here for over 10 years, and there are some really good results. So just to give one example, in some of the northern states, Kano, Kaduna, Katsina, and Sokoto, we've managed to increase enrollment from 46% to 60% and deliver an additional 20,000 female teachers specifically to encourage girls to get into education. As a result of this summit, we're looking to a new grant for Nigeria of $125 million, which will enable us to reach an additional millions of children here in Nigeria. That's going to be focused on Oyo State is one of the examples of state that this will focus on. So a lot at stake for Nigeria, and 125 million is actually the largest grant that is available under this fund.
All right, good to see you. Why is that girls' education is so important for the UK, and what is the UK doing to improve education outcomes, most importantly in Nigeria? I mean, things like pedagogy and the likes, those outcomes.
So yeah, education, and particularly girls' education, has been a huge priority for the UK for many years, and it's one of our priority areas, and will continue to do so. I mean, the reason is very simple, because investment in education is investment in the future. So just to give some examples, particularly looking at girls' education, we know that a child of a mother who has completed primary school is 50% more likely to reach an age of 5. You're going to see 2/3 less maternal mortality deaths from girls who've gone through primary education. And for girls who complete education, each year of education adds 20% to their earnings. So, as I said, it's probably one of the best investments you can make if you're looking at development outcomes, is to invest in education, particularly girls, and obviously not to forget other marginalised groups, particularly people with disabilities, ensuring that they can have access to a better future. So that's why it matters to us here in Nigeria, and indeed to the government of Nigeria. And we've had a good, strong partnership. And our work here in Nigeria focuses on sustainable approaches. So we're not just training teachers, but we're training the training of teachers. We're looking at the education systems that underpin the way education is developed. We're innovating in different ways of teaching, particularly actually after COVID. We adapted our programs to enable more at-home schooling, more online schooling. So we'll be building on those kind of approaches to innovate and change the way we do education to enable us to reach even more children. Of course, in Nigeria, there are particular challenges because of insecurity and ensuring girls and boys can actually get to school in the first place. So the Safe Schools initiative that Nigeria launched following the Chibok girls is also a very high priority for us.
Well, Ambassador Lang, I want to digress a little bit. I hope you don't mind. Yesterday, there was this big issue in Nigeria.
I may mind.
Yeah, well, but let me go ahead first. There was this big issue in Nigeria about Nnamdi Kano, who is British, who is also Nigerian. And then one of the big issues is about how the Nigerian court had taken his British passport, and then all of a sudden he traveled around the world with a British passport before he was arrested in Kenya. Now, we have in this summit a summit on education, but we'll have in the same room Prime Minister Boris Johnson, we'll have President of Kenya, President Kenyatta, and we will also have President Buhari, and the big elephant in the room, I imagine, will be Nnamdi Kano. What do you think the conversation will be like? Because in this particular case, the Nigerian government has been raising questions about the role of the British government. How did Nnamdi Kano get back his British passport and all of those details? And then your views on what happened yesterday and what the British government is doing in terms of its own interventions. I say it's a digression, but we'll come back to this immediate issue about girls' education.
As you say, it is a digression. I'm here to talk about the summit, which is the most important thing that the Prime Minister will be engaging with President Buhari on. And just to reiterate the commitment we're looking to from Nigeria, which is to return to pre-COVID levels of expenditure and to funding 20% of the government budget on education. On Nnamdi Kano, all I will say is that we're on record as saying that we can offer consular assistance to British nationals, and we have requested that consular access, and that's all I'm prepared to say in this interview. Thank you.
But what do you think, High Commissioner, in terms of what has transpired so far? Because, you've been quoted in the papers as having expressed opinions about the trial of Nnamdi Kano, the leader of IPOB.
No. I don't think I would know what I've said about the trial. I haven't said anything about the trials. As I said, what we have said on the record, as a dual national, we can and we often do offer consular assistance, and in this case, we have offered consular assistance to Nnamdi Kano.
Okay.
All right, British High Commissioner.
Maybe I'll come to this subject later. For now, we'll leave it. Yes, Adesua.
Well, let's return to the issue of global funding for education, but we'll quickly take a break. High Commissioner, I will be back with you to discuss some more. Please stay tuned. Thank you so much for staying with us on the morning show here on the Rise News. We still have from our Abuja studios the British High Commissioner in Nigeria, Katrina Liang, and we're talking about the Global Education Finance and Summit taking place in the United Kingdom, although it's a hybrid event. Thank you so much for staying with us. You talked about security as a barrier to education for girls, especially in Nigeria. But what are some of the other barriers to girls getting educated in Nigeria and across the globe, in your own opinion?
Yes, well, indeed, insecurity is one of them, and particularly in Nigeria, where we've seen 900,000 children affected by the kidnapping pandemic. And that, combined with COVID itself, has had an absolutely devastating impact on access to education. But more generally for girls in particular, and particularly as they progress through to secondary school, we see girls dropping out. So far more boys complete secondary school than girls here in Nigeria. One of the barriers is just cost. Although education is free in theory and practice, there are lots of expenses associated. So if parents are making a choice, they'll often choose to invest in the boy child rather than the girl. Domestic work at home, girls are expected to do more of that. Early marriage itself, in the Northwest, by the age of 18, about 68% of girls are married, and about 40% 48% of those will have already had their first child. So early child marriage is a problem. Issues to do with hygiene and period poverty. You know, girls with periods need to have a place where they can go in secure area safely to deal with their period issues, and just simply the traditional and cultural practices that don't value education so much for girls as for boys. So there are enormous barriers. But what we find is that when parents do see their children completing school, including their girl children, and what value they can bring back to the household through their greater earning ability, the fact that they will marry later and therefore be able to earn for longer, they start to realize the benefits of investing in education. We see that globally, actually. Nigeria, I'm afraid, is lagging, but we hope that we will turn the corner in Nigeria as well.
All right, real quickly, where's the UK focusing on as regards to education in Nigeria, and what informs this choice? You talked about Oyo, you talked about the North. Are there specific data sets that informs this choice? And also, you know, how can you assist to have safe schools? You know, because we keep talking about safe school initiative and things like that. You know, what can be done to ensure that we have schools that are safe for the children and that we can avoid security problems like we have in some parts of the North?
Well, I attended the relaunch of the Safe Schools Initiative that took place a few months ago under the chairmanship of the Minister of Finance. And it was a very good event, actually. And it had a combination of people from the private sector, local government, the security services. There were representations from all the security agencies there. So it was a very encouraging event here at the Hilton, actually. And so first part of it is security. You know, the sort of scourge of kidnapping means the police need to be able to deal with it. They need better intelligence and able to work with communities to identify the kidnappers. Secondly, I think it's making schools themselves safe. So there's physical infrastructure that needs to be better. Thirdly, children need to know what to do. They need to be very well drilled if there's going to be an attack. But even with all those kind of measures, ultimately, you've got to get to the root causes. Why is there this epidemic of kidnapping happening in Nigeria? We can see a correlation with the COVID economic crisis. Insecurity has risen across the whole of Nigeria as more people have been thrown into poverty and into unemployment and are finding alternative sources of income, tragically kidnapping in this case. So ultimately, it's about alternative livelihoods as well, for people who see an easy route to funding through the kidnapping scourge. It also means better community kind of inter-peace dialogue to ensure that those who are prone to that can be brought back in through elders, through religious leaders, and persuaded that this is not a good pathway. So we need to tackle the immediate causes, but also the underlying root causes.
I mean, kidnappings, yes, still on the issue of safety. What exactly do you think that the Nigerian government still needs to do specifically? I mean, you're on the ground here. You see the efforts being made. I believe you also see what the omissions are. What kind of advice will you offer? I mean, without necessarily, you know, taking you off your brief.
Well, I think the government is grappling with this. You know, I think the range of security problems that this government is facing is just completely overwhelming. And so I really do understand the challenges they've got. I mean, there's a real dilemma, particularly with kidnapping, in terms of paying of ransoms. You know, we have in the UK a very clear policy not to pay ransoms. And of course, the more you pay, the more likely it is that the cycle repeats. But, you know, if it was my child, I would be very, you know, I'm sure it's exactly what I would want to do. So I think we have to recognize, you know, what parents are going through in this terrible, terrible time. But as I sort of laid out before, I think the government is developing a pretty comprehensive strategy, which is dealing with the immediate security issues, whilst also in parallel looking at the longer term sort of ways of tackling it. So, for example, on the economic side, as I mentioned, you know, particularly in areas where we're seeing farmer-herder conflict and kidnappings associated around that, the programme the government is still evolving around livestock ranching is going to be crucial, because we have to have means of livelihoods for people. Ultimately, I do think employment, sustainable employment opportunities is going to be the way to deal with the different security threats. So in the south, of course, you see the cultists and so on. And so the middle belt, you've got this farmer-herder sort of conflicts, and then kidnapping increasingly spreading around the whole country. Northeast, Islamic State, West Africa. If you're a young man without a job, that may present to you a viable alternative. So ultimately, economic growth and employment opportunities are probably the single most valuable way to solve this underlying problem.
Well, thank you very much, Ambassador Lang, for joining us on the morning show. Thank you very much indeed. This one was nice.
Thank you. Thank you.